Now, when it comes to reading and reading more and how to make time to actually read more, there are no tricks. You just really have to make time for it. So the goal for this video is to give you a few things to actually help you make time for it and a few techniques. But by the way, when it came to actually reading for me did change my life for like forever. I think reading is like a cheat code. Reading allows you to be, and by the way, I rarely if ever read fiction. Is fiction bad? The answer is no. My main like genre of reading was like self-help books and like basically finance and money and stocks and investments and all this stuff. And that's why I've done as good as I've done in those aspects of my life. But now I'm reading a lot more different books centered around like Christianity and books centered about, for example, like godliness because I'm a Christian and so on, right? So my genre has changed a bit, but I'm still like on the finance side because I've also worked here. But overall, I think reading is like a cheat code because it allows you to get like for $20, you're able to get 20 years worth of experience or like 10 years worth of experience. There are so many mistakes that I could have made that I didn't make because I just read a good book, okay? And it helped so much. Now, what changed my life forever when it came to reading is understanding that reading can be enjoyable and understanding that you can read a book that's not enjoyable, but you enjoy what you're going to get out of it, okay? Reading is not all about pleasure, but it can also be pleasurable. And here's what I mean, okay? There are books that I read with over 600 pages that I absolutely felt like every single page was like a task to actually read. And I would read pages and be like, I don't get it. But it taught me a valuable lesson. If what that book is promising you is good enough, you can probably get through it. And at the end, although I didn't use it per se, it did help solidify a lot of my ideas, for example. By the way, that book was, I actually have two copies of it because believe it or not, that same book I read it twice and is actually Security and Analysis by Benjamin Graham. It's like a finance book that teaches you about, for example, like buying stocks and so on. And I basically learned by reading that book that it's not something I actually want to do as a career. And I read it twice just to make sure it was something I didn't want to do as a career, okay? But yeah, books can be enjoyable, but not all books you actually read cover to cover have to be enjoyable if you're going to get something valuable out of it. And sometimes you might not, but you might learn something else some other way. Now, the very first piece of advice I actually want to give you guys is this. It's better to read one good book 52 times than it is to actually read 52 different books in a year. Obviously, you're going to have to increase the amount of books you read from different authors and so on, but understand once you find a good book and you find good information, it's better just to basically get that book inside of your head by reading it over and over again and start applying things to your life instead of basically reading, consuming, and not applying anything and going on to the next book and the next book and the next book. Now, number one, guys, or number two is going to be you're going to want to block time out for reading. The best time for me personally when it comes to reading is going to be in the morning. For you, for example, if you work a 9 to 5, or maybe, for example, 9 to 5, and you can wake up like at 6 a.m. or like at 5:30 a.m. But obviously, to wake up early, you're going to have to get to bed early. And for all those people that say, I'm not a morning person, I'm not going to be able to remember anything, the idea is that's usually going to be like, like an excuse. You get better at reading at different times, because if you're not a morning person and you have a full-time job, then when you get back home from work, you're going to be too tired to read, and that's going to be a problem also. But doing that thing and blocking out that time first thing in the morning helps me out a lot. But for you, you could probably just look at your 24-hour schedule in a day. You associate 8 hours you're sleeping. Well, how much hours or hour or minutes are you going to associate just for reading? I recommend you block out first like 15 minutes a day, and then 20 minutes a day the next week, and then so on and so on, and you just keep building up. I'm able to read without stopping for like around 3 hours or so, and more if I actually needed to. But every 90 minutes or hour and a half, I need to take a break for like around 15 minutes or so. And you want to have, for example, if you are using like ebooks, you want to have the lighting a little lower because it can actually not be good for your eyes. Now, number three, guys, is going to be you want to categorize your reading or like separate it, okay? it's okay to read fiction books, but you have to understand a book is either about learning something or a book is entertainment. It's usually going to be those two things. And sometimes fiction can actually be on the learning side. Like right now, I'm reading The Pilgrimage Progress, and it's a great book, and it is fiction, but there is great value in that. And am learning some things, right? So you can find fiction that teaches you something, but it's okay also to read some books for entertainment. I tried that once, which was The Rosie Project. I have not finished it yet, but it's like a comedy, and that's okay too. If you spend a lot of time on your phone and you want to get your screen time down, well, instead of using your phone all the time, it's good to actually say, I'm going to read a book, and maybe just do that. But having categories for your books helps a lot, because that way you're realistic as far as what you're actually doing. Now, number 4 is going to be, you want to set a goal for yourself. I don't recommend. I think it's a very like good goal in a sense of people saying like, hey, do the 10-page a day goal. Reading 10 pages, depending on how you read, it's not what you think it is. It's not like you're going to be done like in 10 minutes. It usually takes like around like 40 to 50 minutes to actually finish 10 pages, okay? And reading like a page a day is a good way to get started, but staying at that pace is like ridiculous because it's so stupid. Here's why it's stupid: because you can dedicate a lot more time for other useless activities, but reading is going to be useful. You can use that 1 page a day rule to get you started, but try to be slowly increasing it every single week or so, or every single day, depending on how you actually want to do it. Okay, so you can start day 1 with 1 page, day 7, 2 pages a day, day 14, now you're doing 3 pages a day, and before you know it, you actually are doing like 5 and 7 and 10. And by the way, don't stop yourself. Usually, what I learned is like when I don't want to read and I say I want to read a page or 2 pages or just like 3 pages, all right? And you start reading, usually you want to continue reading. So understand that too. Just start and you'll probably want to continue. And if you do continue, all right? It should be a lot of fun. Then number 5, guys, is going to be read things that directly benefit you in some way. There are a lot of books out there, I said before, that might not be enjoyable, but they can directly benefit you in some way. So read those books. If you have a problem with your money and your money management sucks, read books on money management. If you have a problem because you eat out all the time and you don't know how to cook, read yourself a cookbook, okay? If you have a problem with like socializing with people, read yourself a book about how to socialize with people. Try to read books that in some way directly make you better as far as like, just like doing more things and so on, okay? That helps out a lot, because there are a lot of books that people just read for the sake of reading, but if something actually has a way to improve you in some way, at least you have a reason and a why you're reading the book, although you might not find it enjoyable. Like saying, I don't like money books, but you're broke. You're going to be like, I don't like this book, but I like what it's going to do for me. And that's going to motivate you in some way. And it's not about motivation. It's about like consistency, okay? So, but it's going to help you actually say, hey, I have to finish this book because I have to learn about these things because I'm not doing that great financially. Now, number 6 is going to be join a reading challenge. So Barnes & Nobles, they have, for example, a 52-week like reading challenge where they have like different like prompts every single week. Like one is like read a book from an author you haven't read from before, or read a fiction book and all this other stuff. I think trying to read 52 books in a year is kind of ridiculous, honestly. You can try to do that, and possibly you can. But I think that if you are reading 52 books and they're all different about different topics and so on, or they're all like the same topic as far as money and they're all from different authors, it's going to confuse the heck out of you. That's why I say, okay, it's okay to read 2 or 5 great books in 1 year, but over and over again. That's what I mean. I read The Richest Man in Babylon about like in like a year, like 4 times or so. Okay, but I've read that book so many times I don't even know how many times I've read it. But I have that book in me. It's like ingrained in me. Like those ideas are ingrained in me. And I did things where I used to finish a book, go on to the next, finish a book, go on to the next, different. And what I found out is like it comes to a point where you're just like consuming. Now you're a consumer of books, and That's not my goal, to be a consumer of books just for the sake of reading books, okay? Number 7, read multiple books. Is that a thing? The answer is yes. I find myself a lot of the times reading multiple books. Like right now, I'm reading Your Life or Your Money, and I'm also reading Man of the House, and I'm also reading my Bible. You know, these are 3 separate books, and I can basically read them all in one day. How can you do that? You dedicate the morning to one book, you dedicate the evening to another book, and you dedicate like extra time to another book. And I'm also reading another book, The Godly Man, and I'm actually just listening to that on audiobook. More on that later, okay? But yeah, it's okay. You can watch, for example, like 2-3 shows at the same time. You can do multiple things, right? So yeah, it all depends. Now, number 8, guys, is going to be try different formats. So that's where Audible comes in. I like Audible, but I wouldn't use Audible as far as, for example, my only reading method. And I used to use Audible only as my only reading method, but I don't recommend it that much in that way. Audible is great. So if you're driving, use Audible. If you're cleaning, use Audible. If you're cooking, use Audible. If you're in the shower, use Audible. So on and so on. But when you want to have, for example, undistracted time to just focus and concentrate, use a book. Use a Kindle Paperwhite, something without distractions, because distractions are crazy. Using your phone is not a good idea. Using a tablet is not a good idea, because you can basically get distracted at any moment. And use a notebook. And in that notebook, you take down notes. So you're reading notes. And then that way, you can use different formats of books to help you read more. But again, you want to be very careful, because you might just be consuming books, and that's not a good idea. Now, you do become what you consume the most. So if you are consuming books that way, at least you're going to have some things kind of like scrub off on you, okay, in some way. Now, number 9, guys, is going to be quit. All right, this is gonna sound kind of crazy, but quit the books you don't like. So if you start a book, try to give a book like, you know, I read an article where they said like try to give a book 100 pages, and then if you don't like it, you stop it. But 100 pages is a lot of time, man. I'm not sure you need to give a book 100 pages to figure out if you like it or not. But you know where you are, right? So I wouldn't be as far as like I just read the title and I read the back and I read 10 pages and I'm done with this book. It sucks, okay? I wouldn't do that. I would give it a little bit more time. But if you do get a book, understand that a book is not a marriage. It's not for life until like basically death do you part, okay? It's just a book. So if you get a book and you don't like it and you're like halfway through, you're like, this story sucks, man, but I gotta finish it. No, you don't have to finish it. The only time I recommend you finish books, even if you don't want to, are the books that you know directly are going to benefit you in some way. You know, like those finance and money books, and maybe like you're learning how to do some coding or whatever it is. Like those books, yeah, finish them, okay? And then you have number 10, set a reading timer. Here's what I mean by that. Very important. If you're trying to read and you're trying to basically build up the aptitude to become better at reading and be more focused and not be distracted, having time goals is going to be super important. Now, I've learned not to use my phones for these things, because phones are just such a massive distraction. So if you can have, for example, a physical timer like a potato timer or a tomato timer, you can actually buy it on Amazon. Or you can have like a smart device like Alexa, like tell you, hey, Alexa, set me a 30-minute timer. And that way you're reading. When the timer goes off, you know you're done. But this way you don't have your phone and you're like, I wonder if I'm done. Hey, I got a notification there. Let me check that out, okay? So you really want to, I'm very, very concerned about smartphones, okay? They're crazy. It takes so much time. Now, lastly, guys, as a bonus, have a reading list. Very important. So I think that helps you out a lot, so that way you have things to look forward to. And so if you have, for example, a reading list, it could actually help you a lot. So right now, I don't have a reading list, but I'm actually going to get myself a reading list. My reading list, for example, is my tray of books right here, because there are some books that I have not read, but my values have changed in some ways. So there are some books that I'm not going to be probably reading. But there are some books that I have to read because they're important, like books on marriage and books on like, you know, there's a lot of different categories and so on. But there are books that basically improve you and make you better. And you got to read those books because you got to improve and you got to be better, okay? So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys next time, and peace. I hope this video actually helps you read more.